Good day, my name is Aya Thorgrim. Welcome to my channel, and we are going to talk about everything between earth and sky. So this is my question. Why would we put our lives into the hands of patriarchs who couldn't care less about us? So this is what I came out with when I doing some research. And so these are patterns of people in power that hold on to control through pressure, persuasion, or manipulation. The reason why this happens is because power tends to preserve itself. Once individuals or groups gain power, their priority often shifts to keeping it. So this can lead to controlling narratives, limiting opposition, or shaping public opinion, because losing power can mean losing status, wealth, or even safety. So when we talk about patriarchal structure is there where an authority is concerned, historically among older men, elites, or dominant groups. Systems like that tend to reproduce themselves even if individual members don't consciously think, I don't care about others. So I guess that pure force is costly and unstable, so convincing people using manipulation, messaging, ideology, or social pressure, people like this usually lose complete contact with the masses, like they are in their own planet, and from lack of exposure and accountability. They simply don't understand everyday struggles and seem extremely uncaring. And even if some leaders do care, the system may reward behavior that prioritizes control, growth, or dominance over empathy. So the outcome looks extremely cold. So if you're a leader that thinks differently, you are going to face structural resistance. Governments use force with persuasion. Since force alone creates rebellion, they need you to convince you to believe, and belief with fear creates stability. And so even in modern democracies, uh, influence campaigns, messaging, and political framing are softer forms of the same idea. So companies do influence behavior massively. So they can shape attention, consumption, and even beliefs through algorithms and design. And why it happens is the goal is growth, profit, and market dominance. Influencing users through design, ads, incentives is more effective than forcing anything. And this can feel manipulative because the system rewards engagement, not necessarily well-being. And decision makers are far removed from everyday users. So in traditional patriarchal systems, authority often lies with a head figure. Like you could think of like the church and the Catholic Church or legal traditions where this is the head of the family. Stability and order were prioritized in older societies. Authority was justified as knowing best. This now combined with emotional pressure and social expectations. And then you have the historical patterns. If you look at these major events like the French Revolution, the elites held power tightly, and the masses eventually pushed back when conditions became unbearable. And this cycle repeats. Power concentrates, systems become self-protective, disconnect grows, and resistance builds. So this is it. So power protects itself. Systems evolve to survive, even at the expense of fairness. Influence is cheaper than force. It's easier to shape beliefs than to constantly fight resistance. Distance reduces empathy. The more insulated leaders are, the less they feel consequences. And then systems shape behavior. Even well-meaning individuals can act in a harmful way if the system rewards it. Some generally do not care. Some think they're helping even if they're wrong. And some are trapped in systems where caring caring conflicts with survival. So, in the end, this is not all just about patriarchs, it's about how concentrated power behaves across human systems. When control, status, or survival is at stake, people and institutions tend to justify their authority, shape perception, resist losing control. That pattern shows up again and again, whether in empires, boardrooms, or households. That's the deeper and more. So now we have more another question here. If these systems are so controlling or manipulative, why do people go along with them? So we are wired to prefer stability over chaos. Like the people actually choose predictability, even if it's unfair, over uncertainty. The core idea is that a flawed system that works is often tolerated over a risky unknown, and so they count on that one. Then the social conditioning starts early. From childhood, people are taught to respect authority, follow rules, fit into roles. This is clearly highly hierarchical, so obedience is a virtue, and questioning is disobedience. So, even mild fear is powerful because it's constant. When you lose jobs or there's social rejection or there are legal consequences, you don't need extreme oppression, just enough pressure to discourage resistance. So if they can work on that all the time, that it's like all this pressure all the time, it's easier for people to give away their power to an outer source because it's overwhelming. And then we have, then you also obviously have the reward systems. It's like you get access to opportunities or job promotion, or everybody's going, oh my god, you're doing so great, you reach so much status. And that's another way to keep people to not change a system that even might not be that great for them. Justification is huge. I mean, you just gotta explain why leaders know better. This is just how it works. And if I work hard, I will raise too, which it doesn't work like that. It just doesn't work like that. I guess it sort of makes you feel kind of good and you're justifying what you're doing, that there's, and it also handles the cognitive dissonance that there's all these unfair things going on that you don't know even how to handle. And also, the lack of visible alternatives. Like, if you don't haven't thought about what kind of system do I want, or what as a collective are we aiming for as a new type of system, and nobody has prepared it, people are not going to run maybe the risk to just leap into the empty air and put something together on the way. So this is how people work. They don't just accept control, they're actually navigating fear, incentives, identity, uncertainty, and limited options. And most of the time going along feels safer, easier, more rational than in the short term. But here's the paradox. Systems stay stable because individuals comply, but individuals comply because systems feel stable. It's a loop. Well, what's interesting though, there are recognizable pressure points that build up, and then this gotta give. So the big shift in a big group is that when people stop believing anything they're saying, they're not just complaining, they're just literally realize what you're dealing with. Reality contradicts the story that they're pulling. And then, with the biggest trigger is obviously economic pressure. Fear of change can be big, but survival might override it. And then you have this collective momentum. Once enough people act at the same time, the risk is shared, the fear decreases, and the participation grows. It's like when you go swimming in the ocean. It's like you're swimming way further when you're with other people. Like you're just not even thinking about the risks, honestly. Then you have this. Once all these power players start disagreeing in between themselves, you'll have insiders defect and parts of the system stop enforcing control. Now there can be create a huge change. And then obviously you need a believable alternative, something that's gonna make everybody go crazy. They're like, yes, this is what we want. Something new. Something life. So this is the pattern simplified. Stability plus belief. Growing contradictions. Rising pressure, economic and social. Loss of legitimacy. Trigger event. Mass coordination. And a structural break. That would collapse the system. So we have this problem. No, the systems don't collapse just like that. They actually keep adapting just enough, like day by day, and they just distribute the pressure. They offer partial reforms, and they keep people divided or distracted. Actual real change only happens when multiple pressure align at once. So the final perspective of this is that power systems persist because they shape behavior and belief. They break when they can no longer maintain that illusion or meet basic needs. That's why they can feel immovable, but then suddenly they aren't. So these are the great signs. Everything is shifting. The story versus reality gap is widening. What they're saying has absolutely nothing to going on with saying nothing to do with what's going on. So then you don't trust anyone. And then the economic pressure is creeping up. And so then you realize you're not safe. These are the kind of pressures that precede larger shifts. People just don't trust institutions anymore. With all these scandals and hypocrisy and polarization, like there's a huge loss of legitimacy. And that's the one thing that people are like, why are we even putting our betting on and financing these systems? So they're instead of uniting, people redirect toward other groups or like religions or individual or they get individualized. This is all my fault or numbed. They're like distracted and entertaining themselves and drinking beers and watching movies. So this is why it's not snapping yet. The modern systems are really good at offering partial reforms, providing safety nets, adjusting narratives, and releasing pressure in small ways. So it like a pressure valve. It prevents explosion but doesn't fix the issue. And then there is no clear alternative yet. Like people that don't know, they don't like the system, but they don't know what they're going to replace it with. With all these educated people, you think somebody, if you don't, there is no shared vision, energy just gets scattered and people just continue on other things. So where does that leave things? Right as it is right now, we're not in a simple stable phase or in a clear collapse phase. It's more like tension. Pressure is building, belief is weakening, systems are adapting, but no unified break has happened at all. So there are three ways of handling this. There's either gradual reform, they adjust enough to restore trust and stability, periodic unrest, short bursts of protests or disruptions, but no real transformation, or large structural shifts. If multiple pressures align, economic legitimacy and coordination, deeper change becomes possible. Systems are constantly being negotiated. People are like, they're not passive, but they're not coordinated either. And power isn't absolute. It's maintained, challenged, and reshaped continuously. Remember that power can be maintained, challenged, and reshaped continuously.